Alright, in this video we're going to talk about painting today, and we will talk about a variety of things, but the first thing is I want to talk to you about your caddy. Each table is set up with a caddy, and you'll notice there are 4 brushes in each caddy. There is a roll of paper towel, there are 4 pencils. There is also a cup right here that is set up with, and you notice I put tape on it, it is set up with your eraser and your sharpener. The 4 water cups do not have the tape on them. Something new that you're going to see in your caddy is this box of watercolor crayons. And please do not touch it yet. I'm going to talk to you about what they are, how to use them, and if you have to use them in a little bit. But at the end of class, this is what your caddy should look like, is exactly this. Everything lined up just like this for quick and easy checking purposes. I will ask that the sub also checks the brushes, and it's a matter that you guys are going to pull your brushes out, and when he or she walks around, you can just swipe them on your hand and show the sub that they're clean. You can do that with all 4 at once also. Anyway, to talk to you about these watercolor crayons, some of yours will look like this, some of them may be a little broken. It doesn't matter if they're broken or all in one. But what you're going to be doing is using these today. I want you to practice with them and then decide whether you're going to use them or not. Now, on Friday, we did a little test run of a value scale with water. And if you remember, we got the paper wet, and then we started with dark up here, and the paint just moved around, and then we gradually got it lighter and lighter. Well, for this one, we're actually going to be starting with the paper dry, and we're going to apply the color on it first. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a different color here. I'm going to mix 2 colors with the crayon. And the thing about this is you don't need a ton of crayon on this, because this stuff really liquefies and turns into paint fast, and it spreads pretty easily. The benefit of using this is that you can mix colors a little easier. And for some of you, it may be a little bit easier to control the paint doing this. And so you'll notice, I'm going to do just a little more red. You notice that I'm not going real heavy with the paint. I'm just going to kind of lightly bring it down. So I've applied the paint, and I'm just going to simply get my brush wet and turn it into liquid paint. It's pretty intense when you get it into liquid form. Now, as we come down, we are going to get a little bit lighter. When you turn it into the box, that's what we want, is to get a value scale with this, because that was our concept term on Friday, and we'll continue throughout, is value. So I'm going to go ahead and add water to this. I'm also going to keep adding water and bringing it down to get lighter and lighter to the point where my paper's dry, and my paper is also wet. So by the time I get all the way down here, I'm no longer applying water, and you can see it gets lighter. So when you get done with this, hopefully you have a pretty good idea of whether you want to use it, whether it's going to work for you, and you may decide maybe you're going to use both the just regular paint we have in our trays, and you're going to use this as well. So at the front of the room, I have boxes set up. Whoops, let's go back to this one. I have boxes set up, and inside the box is a folder with your sheets from Friday. There are a couple of extras in there for if anybody was gone. So once you have done that, let me skip ahead here. You're going to put this little one that you just did, you're going to lay it in the box to dry, and the sub will collect those, stack the boxes, and she can just leave them for me, or she can do whatever. But anyway, this is where you put it when you're done. So this is only going to take you a little bit. And after you get done doing your little value scale with the watercolor crayons, then you're going to decide how you want to paint this, your city. And I would recommend that if you're doing large areas like the sky and the ground and things like that, you actually work with the watercolor tray. This. Okay? Large areas are going to be this. And this is where you get the paper wet first, and then you apply the paint. Okay? So you pre-moisten the area like the sky. and then you apply your paint to it. Now I'm going to apply a little bit of water with my paint here just to keep this running. And this is going to work rather quickly for large areas. You want to be careful not to put wet paint by wet paint, but boy, it's also not going to take very long for this to dry. But I may just say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and paint the sky, and while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and work on some doors or some buildings. And it's the doors, the buildings, and some of the other details that you're going to want to use, possibly use the watercolor crayons. For example, let's just pretend we were this far here. If I was going to do this, I would definitely use the watercolor crayons for this. I would definitely use watercolor crayons maybe for the doors and the windows, but possibly even the buildings to really build up some of the edges, maybe to mix colors to get some new colors as well. All right, so the last thing we want to talk about is when you are done painting at the end of class, you are going to put this on the drying rack, and that is at the back of the room. There is a drying rack that's set up for each class period. Make sure that you get it on your class period. That is your responsibility. If you end up putting it on a different class, I'm sure we'll find it, but it may be just a little trickier. So make sure you put it on the drying racks at the back of the room. And for cleanup, we talked on Friday about cleanup. Brushes should be easily cleaned by just rinsing them off. You may have to use a sink, but in most cases you can just use the water in your cup. And so instead of twisting and pulling, because that's a big no-no, we're just going to pinch it. We're going to wipe it on our hand. If it comes off clean, great, you're done. If it keeps getting dirty, you may have to maybe even use a little paper towel to take some of the paint out. But this gets cleaned off and put back into the caddy with the handle going down. This gets dumped and stacked in the caddy. There should be 4 of these again in each caddy with the exception of orange, and there should be 4 brushes, 4 pencils, a paper towel, and then obviously we're going to make sure these are all put back together in the box and in the caddy properly. And that is the end of the video.